okay, you emptied it. That was a compliment. That was a compliment. Because then I realized, I said, okay, I understand I'm going to be good company for him, because when he leaves the Talim and when he leaves the Jummah and he gets with me, you don't have to worry about that no more. We can talk about something else. And what we used to talk about all the time was business. The Imam would see the Coliseum, and he'd say, one day we're going to have one of those. We have to have our security too, to secure it, make sure nobody do anything to it. And we would look at the skyscrapers downtown San Francisco and Oakland. He said, we're going to have that one day. He saw the vision of our future. Of our future. And our children, you need to go downtown Chicago and you need to look at those buildings. People own those buildings. Okay? People, human beings own those buildings. That commercial real estate. One day we'll have that too. And we just ride around and we see things, and we're going to have that too. One day. As we build. But first he had to build inside, isn't that right? He had to build inside. We weren't worried about having those things right now. No, we had work to do. Because we were so far away from the reality of what life truly was. So he had to help us to understand what that was. So he was a special man. He embodied the characteristics of the prophets. He embodied the attributes of Allah. That's right. In a man. And the world knew this. Some of us didn't know it. I remember one time he gave an analogy. He said, when you're too close to the mountain, you don't know what the mountain's shaped like. Sometimes you got to back away from it to get an objective view. Some of us were so close, they say familiarity breeds contempt. Some of us got so familiar with him, we thought we could dislike him and disrespect him and everything. But the people that were far away from him, that were reading his words and was watching his work, they knew who he was. They had no doubt about it. Don't you know that the whole country was watching when Elijah Muhammad passed? The country was watching, the world was watching. Elijah Muhammad, one of the boldest men ever walked the planet Earth, just passed. What's going to happen now? Don't you know they was watching when Wallace D. Muhammad took the pulpit that next day? The world was watching. They knew who he was. In fact, the wise ones had been following him since he was a child. They knew what was in the making. And I hate to hear our Arab brothers and our immigrant brothers and sisters and some of our Negro Arab brothers and sisters. I hate to hear them talking bad about the shirk, Elijah Muhammad, and all that stuff they talk. They didn't examine him carefully. They didn't see the child being born. They didn't see the child being raised. If anything, they should give him, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, credit for installing Imam W.D. Muhammad. Just like his leader told him to. Honorable Elijah Muhammad was doing exactly what he was told to do. Name him Wallace D. Muhammad. He'll be a helper for his father. And they raised him in and out of the community. Because he spent a lot of time out of the community. But that was a blessing. Because he got an opportunity to visit churches. And visit other people. And to walk around with the people. So when it was time for him to take over, it was very easy for him to explain to us how the real world worked. It was a plan. It was a strategy. And then we were blessed to be a part of that. We'll go down in history for being a part of that. They'll talk about you hundreds of years from now and say, wow, that was the community that was with Wallace D. Muhammad. When he turned that corner. When he transformed the Nation of Islam into a community of Muslims following the Sunnah of the Prophet and the Quran, just like all the Muslims around the world. And he did it single-handedly. That was a miracle.
Yes, sir.
That was a miracle. We didn't know how to make salah. We didn't know what Jummah was. Some of us have heard those names before, but we didn't have Jummah. I remember when we took the chairs out of Gary and Fillmore. Brothers didn't know, why are we taking the chairs out? Because you're going to have to sit on the floor. Sit on the floor? For what? For Juma. It was like, oh, it was brand new. I remember we were learning the make salat in Oakland, at Masjid Wardin. It was like an aerobics class. We had about this many people in the room, and Ghazi Farwell was one of our immigrant teachers at that time. And he didn't want to teach us what to say in between the movements of the salat. He just wanted to teach us the movements. So we had an aerobics class going on in there, doing a rak'ah. I'm sure if somebody came in from that knew the deen, they were like, what are they doing? What are they doing? And we were learning. And we had to learn Al-Fatiha. And we had to memorize Ikhlas and Kala, the short, powerful surahs. And we had to learn about Ramadan and Hajj. And the Imam took the believers to Hajj, the largest number to ever leave the United States. They said on Arafat, Sheikh bin Bas on Arafat said, the future of Islam is in this man's hands. The people knew all the time. I mean, who has that on their resume? They transformed the nation of Islam into a correct Muslim community. What Muslim leader around the world has that on their resume? They couldn't attempt to do it. They wouldn't even try. But the Imam did it. Excellent job. He did an excellent job. He did a perfect job. Didn't he? Perfect job. You know, I mean, we have nothing but congratulations. It was about his actions. I know it's very popular to talk about the language of Imam Mu'adh Muhammad. But I heard old saying once before that actions speak louder than words. I heard another saying that said, I'd much rather see a sermon than hear one any day. You got to look at the actions of Imam Mu'adh Muhammad. Look what he did in transforming that community. Look what he did in working with the men, and working with the women, and working with the youth. He spent more time in the air than he did on the ground. He was a man of the air. He visited all our communities, didn't he? Yes, sir. On a regular basis. He was always going somewhere to talk to us. And that's all he did. A lot of times, just talk to us. We just like him to come to town to talk to us. And we don't know what he's going to say. He's just going to say whatever he wants to say. But he was enlightening us all the time. He was raising us up. He was a gardener. And he was cultivating the soil. And he was planting the seeds, knowing that one day these seeds would break the ground. And they'd grow up and become very, very strong vegetation to feed the rest of the world. He knew that we would become leaders for the United States of America. That's why he loved Barack so much. You see that African-American man named Hussein become the president of the United States. The Imam knew he was going to be the president too. Yeah. Knew he was going to be the president. Barack Hussein Obama. God loved him. He loved him. You know, he's a great man. I remember when I heard his inauguration speech, I said, that sounds like W.D. Muhammad. His sentiments as he spoke to the world about having relationships with the majority Muslim countries, about the kind of relationships he wanted to have with the American people, and his sense of patriotism. That was the Imam. Didn't he teach us that? He held the flag up. He said,